Welcome back to another UCL Fantasy video ahead of Matchday 8, the second leg of the round of 16, and I'm going to be discussing the best wildcard team. And to be quite frank with you, I wouldn't use the wildcard in this matchday because using it in the second leg of any round, whether it's the quarterfinals, round of 16 or semi-finals, there can be some eliminations and upsets and also comebacks. So it's always best to use it in the first leg of each round, and preferably if you still have the wildcard in your back pocket, I think Matchday 9 would be a very good opportunity. But if not, Matchdays 11 or even 13 for the final would be optimal. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But having said that, I'm still going to make a wildcard team for match day for those of you that are still insistent and think it will really greatly benefit your team for the second leg of this competition and also in the long term until the end. So if you enjoy this video, be sure to drop it a like. Let's try to get this to over 300. I'm also looking to push on towards 20,000 subscribers. Just as a disclaimer, this video is recorded on the Friday and I would like to record it after all the games are done, but unfortunately I won't have the time to do that. And be sure to tune in as well for the deadline stream on Saturday for FPL, possibly a reaction stream on Sunday, and I'll try to get the best limitless and also the team selection videos out for UCL Fantasy over the weekend and up until Monday before the deadline stream on Tuesday for UCL Fantasy. Without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. Heading into Matchday 7, I actually recommended the likes of Onana and Merit, and I'm a bit less confident about them, especially in terms of Onana, who was at home in Matchday 7. I backed them for the clean sheet. Inter Milan did so, but now away from home against Porto, I would be less convinced about that. So Onana is the goalkeeper I would highlight as the one that's more expendable, and that probably won't keep a clean sheet in Matchday 8 potentially, but he's got a high ceiling because of the amount of saves he makes, and he's still a decent goalkeeper, and you wouldn't be too surprised if Inter were able to keep a clean sheet as well. But it is a tricky one, I think, in terms of that second goalkeeper. Also bear in mind the budget and making sure you have enough for your outfield players, the ones you really want. But Merit, I think, is locked in. He's a really good option. Napoli are one of the best sides, if not the very best in Europe right now. They're at home against Frankfurt, who they beat 2-0 already in the first leg. So he is definitely in here. But Onana is a bit less, of a certainty, a bit more questionable. So let me know which goalkeepers you would go for on the wild card or also in general with free transfers. But I think Merit, we can all agree on. Onana might be a bit less safe and also might not get the clean sheet for you in Matchday 8. And there is still a possibility that Porto mount a comeback and also go through to the quarterfinals. But having said all of that, I still think Onana is a good option, but not as good as Merit. There is a difficult balance to be struck in terms of looking at the short term, the match days in front of you. In this case, of course, the round of 16, the second leg, and also the long term. I have gone for the jugular and gone for a triple up in Benfica defensively, which is actually very excessive, you could argue, but I would back them for the clean sheet. I'm very confident of it. If there was any team that will keep a clean sheet match day 8, I think it's going to be Benfica. Of course, football isn't played on paper. Club Brugge could mount a comeback. You just never know, but I'm very confident Benfica have been impressive all season, and even the departure of Enzo Fernandez in January, it hasn't phased them. They're still looking really promising and could go far in the competition. I would back them to go through to the quarterfinals, even if this kind of triple up punt doesn't work in matchday 8. But ultimately, going into match days 9 and 10, you'd probably trim it down a little bit, especially if Benfica get a tough draw. But for this match day specifically, I would recommend a double up in their defense for sure, and even maybe a triple up and go really gung-ho on them and targeting them and that clean sheet probability. Let me know if you think it's too much, of course, but I think 2 would also be the sweet spot potentially if you're maybe not that confident as I am. I've also gone for Di Lorenzo and a double up in Napoli defensively, as well as Ruben Dias, who has been a bit iffy, you could say, or maybe Man City have been anyway. But Ruben Dias has been playing 90 minutes every single game since he has come back from his injury and also got those minutes against Aston Villa, Arsenal, and he's built on from those performances and those minutes. And now he's up to full fitness. He's starting every single game. And Man City are still looking a bit better defensively, although they still can sometimes be a bit suspect. Against Leipzig, for example, I know Ruben Dias was kind of outjumped by Gvardiol, but you could also argue that goal should have been disallowed. And Man City were a bit unfortunate on that day with certain decisions. But this back 5 looks really solid for match day 8. But admittedly, in the long term, there might be some problems. But then look at the likes of Joao Cancelo, Upamecano, who I like from Bayern Munich. They're facing PSG. Even if I back Bayern to go through, I wouldn't expect them to keep a clean sheet at the Allianz. So it's kind of a tricky balance. This is what I'm on about in terms of the wild card or defenders to buy for match day 8. But just to kind of can give you an insight into my own team selection and my transfer plans, I am looking to add maybe another Benfica defender to my ranks before ultimately maybe booking in a transfer for match days 9 or 10. Of course, this won't be everyone's cup of tea. A double up in Napoli and a triple up in Benfica. You've got all your eggs in 2 baskets basically, but I still think it's worth it. And look, it can go wrong, of course, but you've got the Inter Milan coverage in Onana in goal and also Ruben Dias for Man City at home. And I wouldn't back too many clean sheets across the rest of the games. Liverpool have a very slim chance of going through to the next round, but that doesn't stop me from including Salah in this team because you can transfer him out. You do have plenty of transfers heading into matchday 9 as well to deal with Salah, and most likely he'll go out, of course, but he is the top scorer in the Champions League. He's got 5 double-digit returns in a row. He has been absolutely insane in the Champions League. A very underrated campaign, which unfortunately will be cut short because Liverpool are 5-2 down after the first leg. They went 2-0 up and still managed to be 3 goals down heading into the second leg at the Bernabeu. And honestly, Real Madrid, it's their competition and they're very likely to go far once again. They could even win it for the 15th time. We all know about this, but Salah is still worth inclusion. I wouldn't go for any other Liverpool player, despite the fact that they've shown some good form recently, whether it's Van Dijk, Robertson, Trent, Darwin Núñez up front. I wouldn't go for any of them, just Mohamed Salah, and that's it. You don't want to book in too many transfers, so do be careful about this, but I would include him because I think he can score or assist, maybe even both, before Liverpool exit the Champions League, of course. And who knows, you know, stranger things have happened, but ultimately, just have him for this game week. I would expect him to get some points, and then you can say goodbye to him. The rest of the midfield speaks for itself. A good chance of progressing to the next round, although Man City, you could argue, is in the balance, but you'd still expect them to go through against Leipzig. I've gone for Riyad Mahrez, who has been in form, and now he's getting less minutes in the Premier League, but that does give him a better chance of starting all the Champions League games, and he is actually probably the best UCL Fantasy asset besides Haaland in the Man City ranks. And the rest includes Joao Mario, a great captaincy option on the Tuesday, which we'll discuss briefly towards the end of this video, and also Vinicius Jr., who got a mega haul in match day 7, and I never expected it. I thought we'd do well, but not that well, and that just goes to show how good he is in the Champions League. Only 7 goals in a Liga, but he's a different beast when it comes to the Champions League. Only 1 blank, and that was when he didn't start the game at all. And the last midfielder is Kvaratskhelia, one of the most informed players in Europe. It's a shame I captained him at one point in match day 7. He missed the penalty, otherwise he was on for a mega return. And having said all of that, he's still a great player, produces moments of magic, and I don't have any regrets about captaining over Osimhen, to be honest. And I think generally Kvaratskhelia will have the highest ceiling, mainly because he's a midfielder, of course, but he can also get the goals and assists on a very consistent basis, arguably even more consistent than Osimhen. There are always so many different choices up front in UCL Fantasy, and this season is no different. Despite not having any Lewandowski in the knockout stages or Cristiano Ronaldo and players of that ilk, we still have Osimhen, who has been one of the informed strikers in Europe all season. He is so cheap in this game as well. Napoli are just on another level at the moment. They've got a great fixture. They've already got a commanding lead from the first leg. And you've also got Erling Haaland, who is an absolute beast in the Champions League. We all know this. But I think the third forward slot is up for debate. Normally, I'd say Kylian Mbappe, who is the highest scorer amongst forwards. And only Salah scored more goals in the Champions League this season. But PSG have a very slim chance of going through, you could argue. It's only 1-0 on aggregate. And PSG still can mount a comeback with Messi and Mbappe combining very well recently. But I think the safer pick would be Karim Benzema. You don't have to lock in too many transfers because remember, we already have Salah in this team. If you've got Mbappe as well and a few other players that are unlikely to go through to the next round, then you could be in a bit of a pickle already as soon as match day 9, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the wild card. So I think Benzema is a very safe pick, and not many people will have a double up in Real Madrid, let alone in their attack, which is their key source of strength, and Vinicius and Benzema will get the most points amongst the Real Madrid players. So I have gone for Benzema, and it also makes this team affordable. So I overall have, I think, 107.7 million in terms of budget. This team costs 107.6 million. So some of you may not be able to afford this, and I think one simple downgrade, which will make this very accessible, is Ruben Dias down to Ake. And this also goes for those of you that want to bring in Kylian Mbappe for Karim Benzema. So let me just show you. If you really want Kylian Mbappe, that makes complete sense. You can just get him in for Benzema, and then instead of Ruben Dias, you can go for Nathan Ake. I think that is the way to go, and it makes complete sense for some of you. But I have to say, if you are wildcarding in matchday 8 and you do bring in Salah, I would highly recommend just going for Karim Benzema. I think that's the safer pick, and he could also score more points in matchday as well. I think the fixture against Liverpool Liverpool at home is more favourable potentially than Bayern Munich away, which could be another cagey game, despite the fact that PSG and Bayern normally boast so many goals. So that is the 50-man squad for the wild card. Let me know if you disagree or agree. You know, I'd be happy to see your feedback in general. Now let's talk about the captaincy very quickly on each day, and we'll discuss all the different rules as well very briefly before wrapping up this video. If you are unsure about any of the rules or anything in UCL Fantasy, then be sure to check out my How to Play UCL Fantasy guide, which I made last year. It's still applicable because there have been no major rule changes. Everything is the exact same. And for some reason, people still always ask, can we captain someone on each single day? The answer is yes. And because in the round of 16, we have 4 different days, we've got the Tuesday and Wednesday, then the following week we have more games on the Tuesday and Wednesday as well. That means you can captain one player on each single day, as long as they haven't played yet. And the same goes for substitutions. You've got 4 players on your bench, including your goalkeeper, and you can sub all of them in eventually for players that have already played, of course. And then once that's done, the transfer or the substitution is locked in. But all of that is very clear in the How to Play UCL Fantasy guide, as well as the rules section of UCL Fantasy. So now in terms of the captaincy, this will be the big issue if you don't go for Mbappe or another AC Milan, Spurs, PSG or Bayern Munich player playing on the Wednesday, because you won't have a captaincy option on the Wednesday going for this 50-man squad. And that's why if you decide to go for Mbappe, he would be the clear standout to captain on the Wednesday, and that gives you a decent option. And it's always good, if you can, to have different options in your team that you can captain on each single day. It just maximizes your chances of nailing the captaincy and also of making your team a bit diverse and covering different teams respectively. But with this team, it will be a bit difficult because you would have no captaincy option available on the Wednesday, but you can captain Joao Mario on the Tuesday. Then going into next week, you can captain Haaland on the Tuesday and Osimhen or Kvaratskhelia on the Wednesday. So let's sort it out by dates just to make it very clear as well. So Joao Mario will be the captain on the 7th of March on the Tuesday, which is when we're doing the deadline stream. Then next week on the Tuesday, you would captain Erling Haaland, and on the 15th of March, you can go for Osimhen or Kvaratskhelia. But having said that, the likes of Vinicius, Karim Benzema, even Riyad Mahrez can outscore these popular captaincy options. But those are 3 or 4 players that I think can do the job for you and have a very high chance of nailing down the captaincy points there, and you won't have to worry about it all week. But having said that, if you bring in Mbappe or another PSG, Bayern Munich, AC Milan or Spurs player in this wildcard team, or as one of your transfers, be sure to captain them on the Wednesday, 8th of March. Be sure that you're aware of that, because some people do miss it all the time. I try to make a big point of it in all my videos and streams, because people do forget there are new players to the game as well, and it is different to FPL and other fantasy games you may have played before. Just remember, you can make substitutions, and be sure that everyone on your bench is playing later in the week, preferably next Tuesday or Wednesday, instead of those playing on the 7th of March or the 8th of March. And you can sub out your lowest scoring players for those on your bench that haven't played yet. And in terms of the captaincy, you can captain someone on each single day. But remember, once you change the captaincy, the original captain, their points, their double points will be lost entirely. But hopefully you got all of that. Let me know your thoughts on this wildcard squad. I think the one big weakness is the lack of a captaincy option, or a player even, from one of those 4 teams playing on the Wednesday, 8th of March. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes. Let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and UCL Fantasy League. All of that is there. There'll be more UCL Fantasy content across the weekend, the best limitless team for Matchday 8, the team selection, and the deadline stream on Tuesday, so be sure not to miss any of that content coming up. So I'll see you very soon in the streams and videos, and I wish you all the best for UCL Fantasy.